All right. That down, guys. Let's move on to this, shall we? You know, yesterday on Filthy Sports, a few people wrote in and say, John, what do you think about Jerry Jones, like threatening the jobs of some radio hosts? It just happened earlier in the day. And I had only seen like a 10-second clip of it. And if you guys watched the show yesterday, having just had a chance to watch like a few seconds of it, I thought, it's not a good look for Jerry. But, he's probably getting asked a lot about the coaching situation again, and he probably just got frustrated. Well, I had more people write to me and say, John, I really think you should look at the full thing. And I watched the full thing. So basically, for those of you who don't know what happened, Jerry Jones, owner and general manager of the Dallas Cowboys, did his weekly radio show with a couple of hosts. And the hosts asked him some very basic, reasonable questions. Questions like moves made in the offseason or moves not made in the offseason that may or may not have led to Dallas's struggles right now. That's a reasonable set of questions and questions surrounding that, right? Reasonable, common sense questions. Jerry Jones gets a bit defensive. I'll let that slide, right? Because I'm sure he's doing nothing but hearing about this all the time. So he gets a bit defensive, but he refuses to answer the question. And he starts going off on this wild thing about, I'm not going to sit here and just talk about everything we've done wrong for the past 20 years. Why don't we sit here and talk about everything we've done right for the past 20 years and blah, blah. And like the hosts were like gently, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the hosts were just kind of like gently going like, the off-season stuff, this just happened.
Yeah.
You said you were going to go all in, but nothing happened other than a contract with Dak Prescott. And so, like, we're just wondering, like, how does this fit into, what you said about going all in and where we're at right now? And then Jerry starts to lose it to the point that he ultimately starts to basically threatens the jobs of the hosts.
Yeah.
Because it ain't your job to ask me about this. And I'm sitting there watching. It's like, actually, Jerry, that's specifically their job.
That's the whole point.
Their job is specifically to ask you these kinds of questions as the general manager. Now, I get it. Maybe the owner of a team is not accustomed to being asked such questions. But if you want to wear the general manager hat, these are the questions you're going to get asked. Totally reasonable. And then he starts going on and basically making veiled threats that you're not going to be here asking questions anymore. Like basically making veiled threats that he's going to get them fired and make them lose their job because they were asking totally rational, reasonable questions.
Nothing like a multi-billionaire getting a little snowflakey over a question, about
about
the team he owns.
He controls and owns.
Yeah. Let's threaten the guy who's just trying to make ends meet, but you're the multi-billionaire. Yeah, let's take that dude's job away.
I would sympathize a little bit if they were like getting personal.
Yeah, if they were going at him.
Like, hey, Jerry Jones, you're an idiot. Yeah. Do you think that had anything to do with Dallas sucking now? Like if they did something like that, I would kind of get it.
They're just asking about the business.
But they were keeping it very lighthearted. They were very gentle, but they were asking questions that needed to be asked.
You know why they were gentle?
Why?
Because they're the broadcast partner of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yes, which is what, when he makes that threat, it's not an idle threat.
Yeah.
The owner of the Dallas Cowboys goes to the station and says, I want those guys gone. What do you think is going to happen? Yeah. Those guys are going to be gone. So here's the thing. It all kind of revolves around this, though. Jerry Jones, and I know I've harped on this before, but it's relevant to the conversation. Jerry Jones, who, by the way, has won Super Bowls. I ain't taking that away at all. That was a long time ago. Jerry Jones made statements saying, we've got the talent and we're going to go all in. All in. That makes you think he's going to open up the checkbook. They're going to go out. They're going to start to acquire talent and all this kind of stuff. Well, then a couple of things happen. Derrick Henry is available. He's got no contract in this offseason. And he specifically has said, he's confirmed, he wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy. Wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy. But they didn't sign him. Instead, they went out and got he was great, but he's well past his prime, Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, I used to love that guy, but he is what he is now. I'm not saying he's one of the worst running backs in the league, but he is not a primetime player anymore, okay? Just call it what it is. And what he does instead is he goes out and gives Dak Prescott, who is a good quarterback. I like Dak Prescott, but he is not a top 5 quarterback in the league. And they paid him the richest contract in NFL history. Do you know what he makes a year, Ryan? Want to take a guess what Dak Prescott makes in a single year?
$56 million.
Very close. $60 million a year. Dak Prescott makes $60 million a year. He is 25th in the NFL with a quarterback rating of 48.9. He's thrown 8 touchdown passes, which ties him for 12th. With those 8 touchdowns, he's thrown 6 interceptions. He's averaging an interception per game. He's thrown for a bunch, like he's averaging like almost 270 yards a game. He's slinging for a lot of yards, but he's throwing the ball insanely. So 25th quarterback rating, 12th in touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and they're paying him $60 million a year is what Jerry Jones paid him. Now, I tell you all of that because I want that to set the context for this other set of numbers. Derrick Henry, whereas Dak Prescott is ranked number 25th in QBR, Derrick Henry has run for 704 yards this year. Do you know where that ranks him in running backs?
Number 1.
Number 1. Derrick
good.
Henry
Yeah.
has rushed for 8 touchdowns this year. Do you know where that ranks him, Ryan?
1.
Number 1. Derrick Henry is also a workhorse. He's carried the ball 119 times. Do you know where that ranks him in the NFL?
Please say 1.
1?
Number 1.
All right. 3
Dak
for 3.
Prescott, number 12, number 25 in QBR, $60 million a year. Now, hold all that information in your head that Derrick Henry right now is the baddest man in the NFL. When asked, hey, Jerry, Derrick Henry said he wanted to be a Cowboy. Why didn't you sign him? You know what Jerry Jones's answer was to the reporters? We couldn't afford him. He straight up said, we could not afford him. The number 1 best player in the NFL, of course, Christian McCaffrey's out right now, but for now, number 1 in carries, massive workhorse. Number 1 in rushing yards, massive production. Number 1 in touchdowns, massive finisher. We couldn't afford him. Dak Prescott got $60 million a year. Hey, Ryan, you know how much Derrick Henry signed a contract for with the Baltimore Ravens? You know how much he makes a year? Wild guess.
$5 million.
Close. 8. You gave Dak Prescott $60 million a year, but you couldn't afford a guy who wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy, who lives in Dallas in the offseason, who is the number 1 in carries, number 1 in rushing yards, number 1 in touchdowns, and was willing to go for $8 million a year.
Pretty good deal.
$8 million a year. And you said, can't afford him. Why? Because we gave a guy who's not a top 5 quarterback in the NFL $60 million a year. Don't worry about it. We'll just bring back Zeke. And so listen, I say all that because that's the background and the context of a Dallas Cowboys radio host asking the general manager, hey, in the offseason, you said you were going to go all in. Do you think your inability to do this in the offseason has led to some of the problems? How dare you ask me about that? We're not going to talk about... And I'm sorry, but they have totally botched this thing. I don't know how they thought they were going to go from last season, then say, we're going all in, basically keep the same team, only give the quarterback way more money than he deserves, not sign the best running back in football right now, even though it's only $8 million, and say we were going all in. And then you threaten the jobs of the radio hosts for that. I mean, listen, Jerry Jones is a cornerstone of the NFL. He has won championships. And listen, one of the things that drives me nuts about a lot of owners that they clearly don't have a passion to win. They're just in there for business. Jerry Jones, hey, you can say all you want about him, man. This dude, he would give up a kidney to win another ring. He wants to win. He's passionate about winning. I give him all the respect in the world for that. But their current problems are an ownership problem. And anyway, Ryan, you saw this whole situation play
Yeah.
out. What do you think about this?
Kind of add to like going the all in. They also gave CeeDee Lamb a huge contract extension.
Yes, they did.
Making him the second highest non-quarterback paid player. So they're really invested in those two things, and they're not paying off right now. Obviously, some of that could be the offensive line and no running game, which leads into what you're saying with Henry. But as far as like the radio hosts and stuff, they're asking what they're supposed to ask. Like I said, they're a broadcast partner of the Dallas Cowboys. So there was already a feeling that they were giving softball type questions to him anyway. So they weren't really pressing him. So they're basically giving him easy questions to answer, and he's overreacting and threatening them, which is super unprofessional and kind of shows. I think he's obviously overstressed with everything, with the losses and dealing with this. So,
Yeah.
but I don't, what's the point of that? It just makes him look even worse that he's doing that.
Well, and then
So-
yeah, I mean the fact that he's doing that and other people are listening. It's like, did he forget himself, dude? You're not at the golf course.
Yeah.
you can't just like talk like this.
Talk
you've
down.
got an audience that's immediately judging you now.
Yeah, and
You know what I mean?
and I mean, I'm like, obviously, none of us are super Cowboy fans, especially John. But like,
it's
I'm sure
true.
the fan base,
It's
I'm
true.
sure the fan base is tired of those kind of things too with him, and this just makes their own fans have to now deal with other fans saying your owner's, doing these weird interviews now and wanting to fire people on the radio. So it's just a bad look overall. It just makes it's more of a circus, like for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and it doesn't make it, and now it's become a big distraction for the team as well, and whatever. And by the way, I don't think Dallas, the Cowboys, are as bad as they
No.
looked against Detroit the other day. I just think they're not a 12-win team this year. They're not this Super Bowl or bust team. They're going to be a fairly average team. They're going to get some wins. They're not as bad as that loss to Detroit says
No.
they are, but they're clearly not the all-in team that Jerry Jones said they were
No.
going to be. So anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? About the comments Jerry Jones? Hey, listen, we all, sure, you get uncomfortable. You might get frustrated getting asked questions you don't want to answer, but I mean, to then straight up threaten guys' jobs for just doing their job. Anyway, whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments below and let us know your thoughts.